our second episode. I'm really excited because we've launched it last week and I know a lot of people enjoyed that. But let's recap on what we spoke about last week, and that is failing backwards and failing forward. Those are the two different types of failure that people need to look at. And one important thing that we spoke about, and I feel like that's something that it'll take me a couple of weeks to get over, and that is mindset. Mindset is very important because once you determine the failing forward and failing backwards, you get to realize what you need to do in order for you to use failure as a friend. Now this week we're going to be talking about, is your past holding you hostage? And I love the quote that you put down, that is, every major difficulty you face in life is a fork in the road. You choose which track you will head down toward breakdown or breakthrough. Those two words are quite important in order for you to understand this. Breakdown and breakthrough.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's great to be back. Thank you. It's our second podcast. And, you know, just as you were reflecting on what we learned and what we shared the first podcast, and the need for the right mindset to help you navigate failure, one of the things that was coming to me was just to say to people who are listening in and who are learning and trying to work on their mindset so that they can see failure as more of a friend than something that you need to shy away from. One of the things that was coming to me to say, and this is something that one of my mentors has always said, and that's the go easy on yourself. This is the business of self-development, not self-criticism.
Wow.
So, you know, this is the business of self-development where you're developing yourself and not to overly criticize yourself. So go easy on yourself when you start to realize that you need to do a lot more work before you can get to a point where failure becomes your friend. You know, and when we started the podcast, one of the things that we had talked about was, how do you, like, is it something that I fully own, that I'm now really good at dealing with failure as a friend? And one of the things that I said was, actually no. Every time failure shows up, even now, I still have to, like, I'm never quite fully prepared for it, because you put yourself out there not really expecting, still not expecting to fail. Yeah. But when failure will show up, and it's about learning to respond to it in a way that will help you move forward. So I just, wanted to kind of recap on that as well, before we go into the conversation this week about breakthrough or breakdown, and whether the way you relate to failure, is it going to make you have a breakdown and a meltdown and you're not going to be able to move? Or are you going to use it to actually propel you forward to your next thing?
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you fully grasp the idea of breakdown and breakthrough? Because I know, and being, like you mentioned, a student of leadership, do you think that this is something people are still struggling with now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not an easy one to navigate. I mean, when I think about it, my ability to be able to show up strong today is because I've been able to break through a number of things that have happened in my journey. A number of things that have happened which could have broken me down, and could have kept me in a place where, like, I'm so overwhelmed I can't move beyond it. But I think my ability to be able to look at these setbacks as an opportunity for breakthrough is what's helping me to show up strong today. So again, it's mindset. Yeah, that's what it is. I wrote that in my notes. My ability to show up strong today, because I have been able to reconcile with my past in every crazy experience that's happened in my life. And I now recognize that every single experience has contributed to my calling. Has contributed to helping me fulfill what I've been called to do.
What if the failure is so traumatic that you do not want any part of it? Something that you go through and you feel like every time you think of it or every time you visit it in your mind, it always weighs you down.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would say, okay, I'm not going to touch it? Or is it something that you should actually try to befriend?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think it all depends on the individual, like what happened with me is that it took me years to be able to fully reconcile to the many different things that had happened in my life's journey. And for many, many years, there were certain experiences that I wouldn't revisit because I didn't want to go back there because it was too painful to revisit, But I think as you journey and as you learn this thing about leaning into the tension, leaning into whatever you're experiencing in that moment, and then doing the work to ask yourself, why do I feel this way? What's happening with me right now? What is the emotion that's showing up? And I love one of the things that I've often listened to is have the emotion, but don't allow the emotion to have you.
Oh, that's deep.
So you're experiencing the emotion, you're allowing the emotion to come, but it's not going to control you because you're going to learn to redirect what is happening to you in that moment and lean into it and learn the lessons from it. So, going back to your question, everyone responds to the challenges of life differently, and there's some experiences which are incredibly painful. And the idea is not to minimize people's experiences of failure, but it's to ask people, if you were to sit with yourself for half a day and write down what did it come to teach you, and how can you maybe seek counseling, maybe seek mentorship, seek coaching to help you navigate and push through that which you're experiencing in order to move you to your next best thing. And I think the journey is moving forward, and the title that we had said we were talking about is so that your past doesn't hold you hostage, so that you're not held back by what you've experienced, but that you're looking at it, confronting it, and deciding, this is what this has come to teach me, and this is how I'm going to make sure that I don't come back this way again. Yeah.
Do you think that people are, with everything that they're going through, especially when they've gone through these traumatic experiences, they are locked there? How does that affect their future?
I mean, that's the whole title of this podcast, which is from the book Failing Forward by Maxwell, is not allowing it to hold you hostage, because when you're held hostage, you can't move. And there's so many things which you've experienced in your life, which could just be holding you back from really stepping out and embracing all that life has to offer you. And I think, as I was thinking about this particular thing, I thought, there's like my own experience, for example. And I'm going to share this because it's taken me years. It took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that, and I've often thought this about myself, that I'm not Fijian enough. I struggled with identity, huge struggle with identity. And that's because I'm British by birth. So my dad used to be in the British Army. He was one of the first recruits from Fiji in the 1960s. Went to England, trained as a soldier, came back after 5 years where they had domicile leave. There were 212 of them. They all got an opportunity to come back after 5 years. And they all found Fijian women. Most of them did. They found their wives, and then they went back to England and had children and started their families. So I was born in England. I'm one girl. I've got three brothers, and life was comfortable. It was really good life. We were very sheltered, provided for by the military. My dad was always traveling, so my mom looked after us. And I remember almost growing up in this kind of place where I would read The Princess and the Pea. I'd read all the bedtime stories, go to bed, in this kind of Cinderella world in your head, because I was an only girl. And then we came back to Fiji. So my mom brought us back to Fiji. there was some disagreement with her and my dad, and so she brought us back. And we literally got off the plane, and this was in the 1970s, the early 70s. I would have been 5 or 6 years old. Nosari Airport, Lubu Airport at the time, straight to the village. So I'm from Namata, Teilevu, yeah, Namata. And at that time, the village didn't even have a road. So you had to cross over these 3 planks of coconut tree trunks to even cross the bridge to get to the village. No proper sanitation, no proper, we were still at that time getting water out of the well. And that was my introduction to life in Fiji. And I couldn't speak a word of Fijian. So I struggled with integrating into the village life. And my grandmother would try and teach me how to speak, teach all of us how to speak in Fijian. And my first Fijian word that I learned was cupboard, kobate. And I remember her teaching me this word, so I have fond memories of my grandmother. But I think what that did was, because people would laugh at us because we were so foreign, I grew up with this huge thing on my shoulder that I am not Fijian enough. And that was the identity crisis that I had to navigate. So, coming back to the title of the podcast, are you going to allow your past to hold you hostage? That identity issue held me hostage for many, many years, because I always felt like I wasn't Fijian enough. So I learned how to speak Fijian by reading Nabolni Seri. I really every day that I could, to try and understand, to try and integrate into the Fijian, into the way of life in the village, to be able to understand what the joke was about. And so for me, it became like that they were laughing at me, and that became part of how I saw myself, because I was still quite young, So that held me hostage for many, many years. I would shy away from anything that put me in the limelight, because I was often worried that I wasn't Fijian enough. Okay. And I often worried about being saksaka. And then because I knew criticism, I would avoid criticism at all costs. Now, if I had allowed that mindset to hold me hostage, I would not be doing what we're doing right now. Wow. So the ability to navigate that identity crisis and come to terms with the fact that I will always be a British-born Fijian woman. That's who I am. And to stop apologizing for it, but to embrace it, and to use that experience to add value to other people and other young people who are growing up navigating the duality of identity, which is part of our world right now. So not allowing your past to hold you hostage really means confronting the discomfort of your life experiences, understanding what is it teaching you about you and how you see the world, and then making a decision to push beyond that and be who you're meant to be. Move into what God has called you to do, as opposed to apologizing for not being okay enough.
Was it hard? And was it uncomfortable?
Extremely. It was extremely uncomfortable. And I think I can't, I often really, I think I overdo it now, because I want to be, and I'm always often overdoing it, because I'm always trying to make up for what I saw as a deficiency or as a lack. So, but I've finally come to the place where I've realized that I can't apologize, because nothing is going to change who I am. And how do I just lean in, embrace it, be okay with it, and choose to then get over myself, because it's not about me, and use what I've been gifted with, which for me is the gift of communications, to then be able to add value to people.
What doors will open to you when you set yourself free from that oppression?
Huge. At the moment, what I'm doing at a national level, I would not have had the courage to step into that if I still doubted who I am. You know, because when you do things at a national level, you're drawing attention to yourself. And so, you know, when the doors open, if you're not fully comfortable, you'll say, close that door, I'm not ready. I don't want to do that because I'm not ready for it. So there will be, I think, many doors, the doors that I've chosen to walk into have been because of the fact that I've reconciled with myself who I am. Otherwise, the door would open and I would choose not to walk into it. So the decisions that I've made to take opportunities and lean into them have now come from a place where I know who I am, I know what I bring, and I know what I'm meant to do, which is to add value, and not focus so much on how I think the world sees me, because it's not about me.
As a student of leadership and dealing with people on a daily basis for the work that you do you now have acquired the gift of identifying that in people, in your daily conversation, when in the words that they speak or in how they carry themselves, and you think, oh, there's probably something here that this person is probably locked in the past, or she's held herself hostage through a trauma that, traumatic experience that she went through. Have you now gotten the ability to identify that in other people?
You know, I think when you become a student of leadership, you learn to journey with people where people are at. And you learn to meet them where they're at. And you learn to not make it about you, but to make it about them. And so you learn to just lean into where people are on their journeys. And, because I work as a coach, so part of what I do is do individual coaching. And if people are not ready to revisit things which could be potentially holding them back, then it's not for me to say to you that, okay, this is what's happening in your life. It's for me to help them to identify it or to come alongside them. And that's the work of a coach. It just helps you to identify that these are potentially some blockages which could be holding you back. But the identification is with the individual. The individual is fully resourced to be able to do what they need to do.
Wow.
The coach just comes along and helps guide them. So you're fully resourced to do what you need to do to step into what you need to step into. The coach just comes alongside to ask you questions to help you to maybe identify some of the things which could be potentially holding you back. But it's not for me to say to you that this is some things that may be holding you back. You're fully equipped and it's within you to be able to identify those things. And the coach just comes along as a guide to maybe ask you the questions which help you to get to where you need to get to.
How do you deal with people that have really fully accepted that their past is holding them hostage and they're okay with it?
And one of the things I love about the lessons that I've learned on the journey is this one statement which I heard one of the mentors talk to, and he said, people are doing the best that they can based on their levels of awareness.
Wow.
So everybody that you meet in life is doing the best that they can based on what they've been made aware of. So if they're okay, then that's what they've been made aware of. And so if that's good enough for you, and you're good with being average, and you're good with staying where you are, that's good enough for you. Then who am I to come and tell you to do otherwise? But what we're doing through these podcasts, I think, is helping maybe just a little bit to shift awareness. To shift awareness, to ask the questions, and to maybe bring into people's awareness, do you think there might be more for you? Do you think you could potentially experiencing frustration in your journey right now because there is more for you? Because there's potential that remains untapped within you. And maybe that's what we're doing.
You can't build a momentum to past problems and fail forward.
Yeah.
I think that's, you can't build a momentum to past problems and fail forward. Explain that.
You can't build a monument.
There you go, I'm reading it wrong again.
That's all right. But I think that's it. I mean, you can't, so what are you doing to build, like a monument is something that you put in memory of, you know? So you can't build a monument to past problems. So you're always acknowledging this huge monument, which is maybe in your living room, and it's a monument to past problems. So if that was me, the monument I would have set up in my living room is, my mother brought me back from England before I was ready. If we'd stayed in England and I'd grown up in England, I would have had a lot more opportunity. I'd probably be doing something completely different. I'd be married to somebody completely different. That's if I built a monument to my past.
Yep.
And I would have put myself in this make-believe world and set up a monument to, like, every day I look at this monument and say, this is what could have, should have, but didn't.
Yeah.
And so I guess that statement, what's it saying? You can't build
now I'm going to read it right the second time. You can't build a monument to past problems and fail forward.
Yeah, so I can't build that and make it all about that monument and the things that didn't happen, and then still move and to use it and fail forward. So failing forward is really about learning the lessons, reconciling myself with the lessons, and then using it as an opportunity to move forward.
Okay. What do you say to leaders who, like you mentioned, they've built a monument, and we also spoke about how they are okay with it, where they are because of their level of awareness. Is it dangerous that they're in a position of leadership and still have that mindset that they are okay being locked in the past? What does that mean for their followers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, is it dangerous? When you take on a position of leadership, you take on responsibility, you know, and you take on responsibility for others who are following you. And when you put yourself up and put your hand up and say yes to a position, so it's not the position that makes the leader, it's the leader that makes the position.
Ooh, say that again?
It's not the position that makes the leader, but it's the leader that makes the position.
So deep.
You know, so the leader is the one who makes the position what it is. The position does not make him the leader or make her the leader. It's the person themselves that make the position. You know, so when you step into a position, you bring you into that position. And who you are and how you influence and how you conduct yourself, it's all tied up. So the position gives you leverage to be able to influence more effectively or influence more powerfully or lead people in a way that people deserve to be led. One of the things I love about the Maxwell slogan, Mark Cole, the CEO for the Maxwell leadership team, one of his favorite sayings is, everybody deserves to be led well. And as a leader, you owe it to your people to lead them well. And if you're leading well, it means you're constantly growing and you're constantly doing the work to work on yourself so that you can continue to lead people.
There's a quote that you wrote here about Dick Biggs, Fortune 500 consultant. Steps to dealing with your past: acknowledge the pain, forgive the people involved, including yourself, if need be. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, so all of these quotes that we're using comes from the book Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell, and this is one of the quotes that he has. And this is like the steps that they identify in order for you not to allow your past to hold you hostage and for you to be able to move past it. So acknowledge that this thing brings you a certain amount of pain, forgive the people, including yourself, and then use it as an opportunity to push forward. And so for me, based on the story that I've just shared, that meant that I had to reconcile with my mother, who I felt prematurely moved us away from England. And so I had to acknowledge that I held this resentment against my mother and what I feel that her decision was rash, that we weren't ready to be moved back to Fiji. And everything that we went through when we came back and lived in the village was because of what she chose to do. And so I had a lot of resentment towards her and towards her decisions. But what I've had to do is to acknowledge that, and that was quite painful, and deal with it and confront it, and then reconcile with it, and then choose to let it go. And I remember having the conversation with my mom when she was 75, and really asking her, you know, actually what I asked her was, is there anything in your life that you regret? And what I wanted her to say was, I regret moving you back from England when you were little. Yeah. She didn't say that. What she said to me was completely different. And so I had the choice. You know what she said? She actually said to me that her biggest regret was getting married to my father. And so that made me think, what does that mean for the children that you had? You know? Now, I could have chosen to build a monument right there. But what I chose to do was to acknowledge that that brought me a certain amount of pain. But because by then I was a student of leadership, I wasn't going to dwell on it. And I learned to acknowledge that that was my mom's journey, it's not my journey. And that was something that she needed to reconcile, not me. And that I still loved her because she is my mom. She was, you know, and so acknowledging that it was painful, which is what I did, and then reconciling that with who I am, and then learning to push past it and step into the fullness of who I am.
That's a great example. What if, to the next question that I was going to ask you, if someone's decision changed the trajectory of your life to a place where you know, a split second, your whole life changed because of someone else's decision. How do you reconcile? You did mention that it is her journey and your journey, but you cannot help knowing that your destiny is tied to each other. As leaders and those that would probably say, man, this is not my fault, I inherited this because of someone else's doing. How do they demarcate and separate themselves from that person's decision? Of course, like if we have to look at it from another perspective, I really was affected by it. This pain that I'm feeling is real because of this person's decision. But how do I separate the two journeys? Because looking at it from another perspective, it's still kind of like the same thing. We are tied together.
Yeah.
Or am I seeing this wrong?
No, I hear you, but I guess what's coming to me is what we talked about in the first episode. It's blaming or taking responsibility.
Okay.
So when you're failing forward, you're no longer blaming anyone else. You're just taking responsibility for where you are. Because you have no power to change anybody else, but you can change the way that you respond. And that's the power, that's what you can do. That's within your control. I can't change what's happened, but I can change the way that I respond to what's happened. I can't change the person. I have no power to change that person, that leader, and the decision that they've made. What I can do, and what I have, is change the way that I respond to what they've done.
What does responding right look like?
Just the case, just the case like I explained about my experience with my mother. You know, for example, for me, the right response was what works for me in order for me to push past that into the next thing that life has for me. And the right response for me was to forgive her, to acknowledge that that's where she's at, but also to acknowledge that that doesn't define who I am. And so that acknowledgement is what's helped me to move on. And that was the right response for me.
Okay.
And I think when you say right response, again, individuals will respond differently depending on situation, circumstance, and depending on who the parties are that are involved. But what I'm hoping that we're doing by talking about this is bringing into people's awareness that you can take responsibility and you can choose to respond in a different way to a situation which could potentially be holding you hostage. But that's the power that you have. You can't change them, but you can change the way that you respond to them.
There's a word that is coming to me just listening to this is forgiveness. Because in your case, you had to forgive your mom, in a way. But what if the situation is such that I was the one who made the mistake? I was the one who led myself and dug myself this hole, and now I have to forgive myself to get out of it. Is that harder?
Is it harder? I mean, again, it's all relative. Like, is it harder for you to forgive yourself for something that you've been involved in? Forgiving yourself is not an easy thing. I mean, but again, it's an individual journey, you know, and you learning to forgive yourself is part of that journey. You know, and somebody, just as you were talking, the line that's come to me is forgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die, you know? So you're doing it to yourself, but somehow you're beating yourself up and expecting somehow that the other person, if the other person has done you wrong, for them to suffer because of what they've done to you. But in this case, you're talking about forgiving yourself. And that's, you know, that again comes from having the emotion, whatever the emotion is, acknowledging it, and then learning to work through it to a place where you're then forgiving yourself. So is it harder? Again, depending on the individual and depending on the circumstance.
The reason why I mention this is because when we're talking about leadership, automatically people are assuming that it's about leading others and I have followers. But sometimes you need to understand that sometimes it goes down to the very basic, that you're leading self from where you were locked in the past, where your past has held you hostage, and leading yourself from that ditch that you've created to walking into the destiny that you've been called to walk into. I understand that it's a journey that we have to take, and someone, like you mentioned, someone that is a student of leadership is still learning, you know, some of these big lessons, and sometimes it's a very basic lessons that we need to get out of. Why do you think it's harder for people to learn this lesson continuously? They think that I've learned my lesson, I've moved forward, but then, you know, we're talking about failures again. It's something that people still get surprised by it.
Yeah, and that's because life is life. I mean, life will always throw you curveballs. It's part of this journey through life. So you might master the response to failure in one area, for example, the area of your finances. Maybe you've got it all together there, but that doesn't mean when it comes at you in terms of relationships or other relationships with family members, maybe, that if you haven't mastered it, it still will surprise you. And so you need to learn the lessons there, whatever that lesson is. You know, or then it shows up because you're continuously, as you're moving up to the next part or the next phase of your life, there will be other challenges that will meet you there, and it will require a different kind of response from you, which means like a different type of failure. So, but when you're looking at it as, what does it come to teach you? What does it come to teach me? What is it telling me about myself? Then you're able to lean into it and use it as a stepping stone. But that, I don't think it means that you ever will master everything. One of the things I love about what John Maxwell says, he says, the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know. So, and for him at the age of 76, 77, who's been a student of leadership for at least 50 years, written hundreds of books, sold millions of copies, at that age, to still be saying that he's still learning about leadership, that to me that's what it is. Because the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know.
True.
And you'll always, if you're adopting a mindset where you're always willing to learn, then you will always see the lesson as life situations present themselves to you in whatever form that they may come.
I know that we're talking about leadership and we're speaking to leaders, but what about the followers? If they've identified that their leader is still being locked in their trauma and their past, how do they navigate through that?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And you know, like as followers or as people who look up to leaders, again, you have no power to change them. You know, you can't change them, but you can change the way that you respond to them. And so when one of the books that Maxwell wrote is The 360 Leader, you know, where you're learning to kind of lead up, lead across, and lead those who are following you. And sometimes if the follower has more awareness and has put themselves in a place where they're learning about growth and they've adopted a growth mindset, that they may be able to live these out by example and influence those around them and influence the leader. But again, you have no control over the way that they respond to you, but you can change the way that you respond to them. And often the influence comes from the way that people conduct themselves in relationships with one another. And some of the biggest lessons in life come from that. And it comes from, okay, you're the leader, the positional leader. I'm the follower who has more awareness because I've been on a growth journey. And maybe I can influence you by doing things for you, by adding value to you, going out of my way to serving you, and which might make you question, why are they doing that? That's so out of character. That's not the person that I used to know. But this person continues to add value to serve me, to go out of their way to make sure that the leader is being prepared and help the leader to do their job better. That's adding value, and that's serving, and that's hopefully then influencing the leader to be able to see who you are and why you do what you do, and then hopefully you'll influence the leader that way.
That's so good. You will not be able to be your best today until you say goodbye to yesterday.
Yeah, that's
It sounds so simple, but it's deep as well. Help us understand this truth.
Yeah, you'll not be able to be your best. You know, one of the things that I said is one of the reasons I can show up strongly today is because I've been able to say goodbye to all the things that could have potentially held me back, all the yesterdays, whatever the yesterdays looked like. But, you know, if I wasn't willing to say goodbye to all of those different seasons of my life, I would not be where I am today. So your ability to close the doors that you've walked through, walk through the door, close it. Walk through the next door, learn the lesson, close it. Walk through the next door, learn the lessons that door, when you open that door, what it taught you, close it. And you keep moving, and you keep growing, and you keep showing up as the best version of yourself as you continue to lean in, you know, because you've said goodbye to the yesterdays, and because you've closed the doors on the things that could have held you hostage. And I mean, if we were to go through them, there's so many things, you know, but your ability to close the door, say goodbye, is what will set you up and help you to be your best version going forward.
For lack of a better word, is it a journey of healing?
Is there a journey of healing?
Is it a journey of healing, the journey that we're walking on? Forgiving yourself and forgiving whatever's happened in the past so that you can move on. You continuously have to heal. But what happens when it keeps on piling up? Then the first trauma, and then it goes on to the second. Well, you're still trying to figure yourself out, and you're still trying to heal from the first one. The third one happens, and it goes on one after the other. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, that's never easy, you know, it never is easy. And I can only share from my experience, you know. And I've had many situations of trauma that have happened in my life, many situations which could still hold me back if I allowed it to, you know. And if you think about it, it's like compounded, you know, like Okay, my mother brought us back when we weren't ready. Then I had to learn how to navigate the complexity of living in the village. Then we had boils and all sorts of crazy things that were happening in childhood. Then you have all these crazy experiences when you become a teenager. Then you get married and then you get divorced. And then you go through all these series of things in life which could derail you and derail anyone. But it's the response to it. And, just choosing that this is life, and every single person in life has struggled with something at some point in their journey. Are you going to become a victim, or are you choosing to become a victor? Are you going to choose to stay, oh, woe is me, look what they did to me? Or are you going to choose to take responsibility, learn from the situation, whatever it might be, what is it teaching me about myself, and then move on and choose. I'm not going to allow that to hold me hostage. I'm moving forward into the best of what life has to give me.
And our next episode is one I'm really looking forward to talking about, and that is get over yourself. Everyone else has. Just in 30 seconds, tell us what that means.
Exactly that. Get over yourself. Everyone else has. It's a message that I continuously tell myself. Every time now I walk down the street, what I tell myself is, it's not about you. Nobody cares. People are trying to make ends meet, are trying to live their lives. Don't be too caught up in who you are, because it really doesn't mean anything to anybody. So get over yourself, because everyone else has. Because it's all up here.
Yeah. For those that are listening to this podcast for the first time, and we're talking about leadership, we're talking about followers, we're talking about the past and the present, things to do and things not to do. What is the main message of this episode 2 of the Leaders Lead podcast presented by SALT?
Yeah, I think the main message is what we started off with when we started this session, which is don't allow your past to hold you hostage. Every one of us has come through difficult situations in life, and the difficulties of life continue to present themselves, but don't allow it to hold you hostage. Why? Because you carry something within you that deserves to be released.
Ooh, that's deep. Say that again.
You carry something within you that deserves to be released, and you will never be able to release it if you allow your past to continually hold you hostage. So it's so important to let go of the past so that you can release what you're carrying within you, not just for you and for your success, but for the benefit of those that will come after you and for the benefit of those that are around you.
I am really looking forward to our next episode, and I'm glad that we addressed something today that people can actually heal from it. Thank you very much, Anna.
Yeah, thank you, Ter. As always, absolute pleasure. Thank you.
What a great episode. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Naka.